Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Blue Mountain Morning, where we're here to help you start your day with a little bit of, what do we call it, Mark? Oh, right, calm and clarity.
That's exactly it, Alex. It's Friday, March 21st, and we're so glad you've chosen to spend a few minutes with us this morning. We've prepared a slightly longer episode for you today. Let us know what you think. You know, there's something really special about Fridays, isn't there? That feeling of possibility hanging in the air.
Oh my God, yes. Friday energy is the best energy. Like, I've already had a few coffees and I'm ready to conquer the world. Or maybe just make it to the weekend. Either way.
A few coffees already? It's only 7 a.m.
Time is a construct, Mark. Caffeine is forever.
Right. Well, before we dive in, we wanted to give a special shout out to the Bumblebee Bowling Club for sharing our podcast with all their members.
Yes, huge thanks to the Bumblebees. Keep knocking down those pins and spreading that Blue Mountain love. So, first up in today's horizon, President Trump is really going after the Department of Education. Yesterday, he signed this executive action telling Education Secretary Linda McMahon to, and I quote, take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education. Like, he's not messing around.
That's right, Alex. The directive specifically instructs McMahon to do this to the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law. But this isn't coming out of nowhere. The department had already announced it was cutting its workforce by nearly half.
Half? That's insane. Like, what happens to all those people? And more importantly, what happens to all the money? Schools need money, Mark.
Well, the administration has made promises about that. They've specifically stated that formula funding for schools would be preserved since it's actually protected by law.
Oh, thank God. So what exactly is formula funding? Is that like math class money? Because I was terrible at math.
No. Formula funding refers to programs like Title I, which provides critical support for high-poverty schools, and the Rural Education Achievement Program, or REAP, which directs funds to rural and low-income schools across the country.
Wait, so can Trump even do this? Like, can he just snap his fingers and poof, no more Department of Education?
That's the big question. Legal experts generally agree that completely eliminating a cabinet-level department would require an act of Congress. What we're seeing is likely the administration using executive authority to significantly reduce the department's operations and influence.
So it's like when I tell people I'm cleaning my apartment, but really I'm just shoving everything into closets and under the bed?
I suppose that's one way to look at it.
Next up, we've got a pretty wild story out of New York. 2 men have just been convicted in this really disturbing murder-for-hire plot targeting an Iranian-American journalist right at her Brooklyn home.
Yes, this is quite serious. A federal jury found Rafat Amirov and Polad Omarov guilty of plotting to assassinate reporter Masih Alinejad back in July 2022. They're now facing decades in prison for this.
Wait, so who would want to kill a journalist? I mean, besides, every authoritarian government ever?
Well, according to prosecutors, Iran's government was behind the whole thing. They allegedly funded the plot specifically targeting Ms. Alinejad because of her campaigns against the mandatory wearing of headscarves for Iranian women.
Oh, I think I've seen her stuff online. She's been super vocal about women's rights in Iran, right? Like really outspoken.
Exactly. She's become a prominent voice in that movement, which clearly made her a target. The prosecutors described these 2 men as Russian mobsters, who were found guilty on several charges including murder for hire, firearms possession, and conspiracy to commit money laundering.
So the Iranian government just, hired Russian mobsters to take out a journalist on U.S. soil? That's like straight out of a spy movie.
It's deeply concerning. And it's worth noting this isn't the first time. Iran's government has been accused in several plots targeting Ms. Alinejad over the years.
And what does Iran say about all this? I'm guessing they're not exactly owning up to it?
No, they're not. Iran's government has called such allegations ridiculous and baseless. But the evidence presented in federal court was compelling enough for the jury to deliver guilty verdicts.
All right, moving on to something that's got me a little, concerned. The FBI has apparently been making some pretty big changes to how they handle domestic terrorism investigations.
Yes, according to sources familiar with the matter, the FBI has significantly cut staffing in its domestic terrorism office and has completely scrapped a tool they were using to track these investigations.
Wait. They're downsizing the people who track, like, violent extremists and potential mass shooters? That seems, I don't know, maybe not the best timing?
It's concerning to many security experts. These changes could potentially undermine law enforcement's ability to counter white supremacists and anti-government extremists, which have been responsible for a significant portion of domestic terrorism incidents in recent years.
So, why? Why would they do this now? Is this just budget cuts or something more intentional?
Sources are suggesting that domestic terrorism investigations may simply be less of a priority under the new FBI director, Kash Patel, who's been a prominent critic of these efforts in the past.
Kash Patel, isn't he the guy who was really vocal about, what did he call it, the deep state or whatever?
That's right. Before becoming FBI director, Patel was known for criticizing various domestic terrorism initiatives. What's particularly noteworthy is that these investigations have largely involved violence fueled by right-wing ideologies in recent years.
So we're basically saying the FBI is pulling back resources from tracking the people who, statistically speaking, have been behind most of the domestic terror attacks lately. That's just great.
It represents a significant shift in priorities at the Bureau, certainly, and many law enforcement professionals are concerned about what this might mean for public safety going forward.
And now for something that honestly made me do a double take when I first read about it. Is planting trees now considered DEI?
It's quite remarkable, actually. Communities across the country are learning that funding for a nationwide tree planting program has been completely canceled as part of the Trump administration's efforts to end federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
Wait, so let me get this straight. Trees, actual trees, like the things that make oxygen and shade and, keep us all alive, are now somehow political?
Well, this particular program was aimed at making neighborhoods cooler, healthier, and more resilient to climate change. Urban forestry initiatives specifically target areas that often have fewer trees and green spaces, which tend to be lower-income neighborhoods.
Oh, I get it now. So because it benefits communities that might need it most, it's suddenly DEI? That's just ridiculous. I mean, trees don't care who you vote for.
The irony is that trees benefit everyone regardless of political affiliation. They reduce urban heat islands, improve air quality, help manage stormwater, and even increase property values.
And let's not forget, they're literally fighting climate change by, absorbing carbon dioxide. But sure, let's cancel the tree program because it's too, woke?
Many local officials who were counting on this funding are scrambling to find alternative sources. Some communities had extensive plans already developed for spring planting that now have to be shelved or dramatically scaled back.
So much for small government letting communities decide what's best for themselves, huh? I bet those communities are thrilled about this. Now it's time for our second segment, Ripple Effects, where we look at a trend that's reshaping America. Today, we're talking about something that, honestly sounds like the best thing ever to me. It's called do-nothing farming.
I know you love the idea of doing nothing, Alex.
It's my specialty, but seriously, this is fascinating. It's also called lazy farming, which, again, sounds like it was made for me. But there's actually some really revolutionary science behind it.
What we're talking about is regenerative agriculture, and despite the lazy nickname, it's actually a sophisticated approach to food production that works with nature rather than against it.
So traditional farming is all about tilling the soil, adding chemicals, fighting weeds, and basically battling nature at every turn, right? But this regenerative approach is like, hey, what if we just didn't do that?
That's a surprisingly accurate simplification. Regenerative agriculture minimizes soil disturbance, keeps the ground covered with plants year-round, maintains living roots in the soil, and integrates livestock in natural patterns.
Wait, so farmers are literally being told not to plow their fields? That seems so counterintuitive.
It does, but there's strong science behind it. When you don't till the soil, you preserve its structure and the complex ecosystem of microorganisms living there. Those microorganisms are key to healthy plants.
So you're saying there's like a whole universe under our feet that we've been destroying with traditional farming?
Exactly. A single teaspoon of healthy soil contains more microorganisms than there are people on Earth. And these microscopic fungi and bacteria form incredible networks that help plants access nutrients and water.
That's mind-blowing. But I'm curious, how does this actually work in real life? I mean, don't the weeds take over if you're not constantly fighting them?
That's where the cleverness comes in. Instead of fighting weeds with chemicals, regenerative farmers use cover crops, plants grown specifically to protect and enrich the soil. These cover crops naturally suppress weeds while adding nutrients back to the soil.
So you're saying we can grow food without dumping tons of chemicals into the ground? This sounds too good to be true.
It's not only possible, but it's also happening across America right now. Farmers who switch to regenerative practices often see their soil health dramatically improve within just a few years.
Okay, but what about, money? Farmers aren't exactly swimming in cash these days. Can they actually afford to make this switch?
That's the really interesting part. While there can be transition costs and a learning curve, many regenerative farmers report significant savings on inputs like fertilizers and pesticides. Plus, their yields often remain stable or even improve over time as soil health recovers.
But wait, this is the coolest part. These regenerative farms are literally fighting climate change, right?
They absolutely are. Healthy soil is one of our planet's largest carbon sinks. Through photosynthesis, plants pull carbon dioxide from the air and store some of that carbon in the soil. When we keep soil undisturbed and covered with plants, we're essentially sequestering carbon.
So instead of releasing carbon into the atmosphere like conventional farming often does, these regenerative farms are actually pulling carbon out of the atmosphere? That's like reverse pollution.
A recent study suggested that if regenerative practices were adopted globally, we could sequester enough carbon to offset 10 to 15% of the world's annual greenhouse gas emissions.
That's incredible, but what does this mean for what we see in grocery stores? I'm always suspicious when something sounds too perfect.
It's already changing what we see on shelves. More companies are sourcing ingredients from regenerative farms and marketing those products accordingly. General Mills, for example, has committed to advancing regenerative practices on 1 million acres of farmland.
I've been seeing more labels like regeneratively grown and carbon neutral on food packages lately. Is that related to this?
Absolutely. Companies are recognizing that consumers, especially younger ones, care about how their food is produced. And these regenerative products often taste better too, because plants grown in healthy soil develop more complex flavors and higher nutrient density.
So just to make sure I understand, this do-nothing approach actually creates healthier soil, fights climate change, saves farmers money in the long run, and produces more nutritious food? This sounds like a no-brainer. Why isn't everyone doing it?
Change is hard, especially in agriculture where generations of knowledge have been passed down. Plus, there are powerful economic interests invested in the conventional system of selling fertilizers, pesticides, and specific seed varieties.
Of course, money and politics ruin everything.
But the momentum is building. Organizations like the Soil Health Institute and the Regenerative Agriculture Initiative are providing research and support to farmers making the transition. And consumers voting with their dollars are helping drive the change too.
So what you're saying is, I should look for regeneratively grown products next time I'm at the grocery store?
That's one way to support this movement. And if you want to see it firsthand, many regenerative farms offer tours or volunteer opportunities. It's quite remarkable to see the difference in soil quality between conventional and regenerative fields.
Well, do-nothing farming sounds like my kind of revolution. Who knew being lazy could save the planet?
And now it's time for today's Morning Whisper.
My favorite part of the show, the moment where we all just breathe.
You know, I was walking through the woods near my house yesterday morning, just as the sun was rising. There was this moment when the light filtered through the trees and caught a single dewdrop hanging from a leaf.
I can picture it.
That dewdrop held the entire forest within it, every color, every shape, perfectly contained in this tiny, fragile sphere of water. And I thought, isn't that just like our awareness? When we're truly present, even for a moment, we can hold the whole world.
Wow, that's beautiful, Mark.
So today, I invite you all to find your dewdrop moment. Maybe it's during your commute, or while you're washing dishes, or just before you fall asleep. Find that single point of pure attention where everything else falls away.
Just one breath where you're completely here.
Because in that moment of stillness, you might just glimpse something extraordinary in the ordinary, like the universe reflected in a drop of morning dew.
Well, that wraps up today's episode of Blue Mountain Morning. We hope you're feeling a little more grounded as you start your day.
We really do. Thanks for spending part of your morning with us.
And hey, if you're enjoying our little podcast, do that thing where you tell other humans about it, with your mouth words.
What Alex is trying to say is please share the podcast with friends and family. It really helps us grow our community.
Oh, and if you want a shout out like the Bumblebee Bowling Club got today, just shoot us an email at bluemountainmorningpodcast@gmail.com.
We'd love to hear from you.
Seriously, we would. Mark reads every email. It's actually kind of creepy how much he enjoys it.
I just like connecting with our listeners. We'll be back on Monday with a fresh episode.
Until then, stay curious and stay calm, mountain people.